she built herself up to be so confident and so robust that she knew she could do it. And she went out and delivered a pretty flawless race. So Cass came to Loughborough in June 2022. There was a Leeds World Series race, and she came into Loughborough for a couple of weeks around that. She really liked it, liked what she saw that this was the place that she could further her career, and liked the fact that she can combine education with a high-performance triathlon environment. There were some obvious real strengths that Cass had, certainly in terms of her swimming and running, and then there were some obvious areas that we really needed to work on. But it was probably more than just the obvious stuff. It was actually creating the right environment for her and for her to feel confident in herself that she could and belonged to be at the top end of a World Series race.
So I was the lead physiologist for the triathlon team, so Gav and I had a good relationship from the get-go. And once we kind of had that plan of the Olympics and everything that needs to get ticked off before the Olympics, Gav got the whole interdisciplinary team together, so all the different disciplines, all the support staff together in one room, and we were like, right, this is the goal, this is where we need to get to, how do we get there? So we identified the race demands, we identified the gaps, potential gaps in her performance, and how are we going to get all together there. Obviously, we all supported each other within the team, we all supported each other, different disciplines, different practitioners. It's always nice to hear different perspectives, and Gav was obviously leading all of us together towards the same goal, and I think it was quite a successful collaboration.
So we conducted some strength and power testing to identify Cass's strengths and areas of development. So we identified that we needed to improve quadriceps max force and reactive strength. So what we then did was create a program that focuses on improving those two elements. So we utilised heavy loaded exercises through compound lifts and also isolated quadriceps strengthening exercises. So what that looks like is lots of isometrics, lots of heavy loaded eccentrics. And what that enabled us to do is just to really focus on the quadriceps. In terms of triathlon, that would help to improve her bike performance, so improve peak torque and peak power, which is really important during the most high-intensity elements of a race, so whether that's hills, sprints, corners, things like that. With regards to reactive strength, we utilise calf and soleus strengthening exercises. So again, similar to the quadriceps, we use isometrics and eccentric exercises to do that. We also utilise some low-intensity plyometrics, focusing on improving her ground contact time. And what that will do with regards to triathlon is help improve her running economy, which is really important during the end, or as we near the end of the race.
My role was from several dynamics, really. The first was as a physiotherapist to support her in mitigating and preventing injuries, managing injuries, but also to optimise her performance. And then the second facet was more around her bike position, so her tactics in racing and her understanding of the position and the trade-offs of that position. And between the combination of those two, we approached several sort of strategies across those 2 years to achieve what we wanted to for her at the Games. And I guess from the bike standpoint, what we were mostly interested in is not necessarily how we can make her faster, but actually how can we enable her to work less on the bike to conserve energy and thus having more energy onto the run, which was her super strength. The other aspect of things was also from the coaching element. So we had great knowledge of the steps coming out of the Seine and onto the transition area. So we did some preparations in around that testament to Gavin. And then the sort of tandem influence of the gym on that and building up that explosive strength at the stairs. And we also obviously had the knowledge of what the course would look like from an aerodynamics perspective and where perhaps there may be breakaways. So we discussed that with Cass as well. So multiple facets, really, but it was so imperative having that knowledge and data in that decision-making.
Cass and I did a big piece around the heat. So heat acclimation. So not just because we knew that Paris might be warm, but because obviously all the other races that were leading up to Paris. So she obviously needed to qualify. She needed to hit the targets. We want to do certain races very well. And all of that was predominantly in the heat. So the heat was a big piece of our support, and just making sure that on the day when she comes to Paris, heat is not something that's going to have a detrimental effect on her. So apart from getting her heat acclimatized so she can deliver what she's capable of on the day, it was also giving her quite a good training stimulus. So in collaboration with Gav, we kind of put a lot of smaller or bigger heat blocks throughout the past 2 years, which were targeting different things. Some were targeting certain races, some were targeting just physiological adaptations, really, and giving her that a little bit of extra support, I guess, so that once she got to Paris, heat was not a problem, or if it was a problem, she knew exactly how to both mentally and perception and physiologically deal with it on the day and just deliver what we all knew that she was capable of.
So a couple of things we did in the process pre-games was around like nutrition timelines. So she had some quite big races coming into the games and not just in Paris. So we did a lot of kind of nutrition practice and trial runs of how she would use what we implemented in those races in Paris. So a lot of the stuff we did was around timing. So if your race is at this time, this is how far in advance we need you to be eating a high carb snack. And then this is the time we'd want you to eat breakfast ideally. These are the kind of options that are going to be available to you at that venue. Different countries and different cultures and different kind of like food palettes was really important to make sure that we get as much consistency as possible despite like those changes in circumstances. We also did a lot of work in the heat chamber, so working with the physiology team around sort of like sweat rates and figuring out how much she would have to drink to be able to offset sweat losses and make sure she's still able to perform at that highest potential. And then the other things we did were around kind of carbohydrate loading on the bike. So making sure that she had enough grams per kilogram of carbohydrates to be able to support her optimal performance in some of the longer races leading up to the games and then also in Paris itself.
Paris was just a fairy tale. I think the course was immense, taking you down the Champs-Élysées, over the Pont Alexandre Trois. It was everything that you could imagine with the Eiffel Tower in the background. And on that day, on the blue carpet, the weather, the water quality, everything there that we didn't plan necessarily for, she just soaked up. You know, the real challenge was in her head at that point, and we knew that.
I'm a bit of a football fan, so it's like a last-minute winner. So I was kind of up, jumping around, celebrating in the living room, which was a great feeling to know that I'd worked with Cass. I think the race got delayed by a few days and also the conditions were awful. So from like a psychological perspective, for her to be still able to go out there and perform how she did was amazing.
In all honesty, it was very stressful. There were a lot of thoughts going through my mind of like, is she eating enough? I didn't see her take a gel on board. Like, oh, is she taking a gel? Has she had enough to drink? Very, very stressful to watch, but also so relieving and so incredibly proud when she crossed the line, and knowing how much work she put in leading up into that moment was really, really cool.
It probably wasn't until a few hours after that I started to go, wow, there's so many things that could have gone wrong, or in the preparation and build-up period that would have impaired her ability on the day, but everything fell into place. So there was this aspect of, well, this couldn't have gone better, and so there's some real joy attached to that.
Yeah, it was definitely something I've never experienced before. It was very emotional day. It was very stressful, a couple hours for me watching, but it was absolutely amazing. I can't really describe the feeling of just knowing everything she's been through and all the hard work she's put in, Gav, everything, all the hard work and time that he's put in, the entire team and everything, just watching her cross that finish line in Paris, essentially, I mean, her, not hometown necessarily, but like, you know, home country, and just, yeah, grabbing that tape was absolutely brilliant. It's definitely going to be engraved in my mind for the rest of my life.
It was a mixture of relief from all the work that so many people have put in to absolute elation when she finished across that line with room to spare. You know, it looked, I could see from the grandstand how it was in the last 400 to 600 meters. At that point, it was just, she just had to hold on, and I knew she would. And that feeling then when she crossed the line, you know, I was so proud of the whole team for what they put themselves through, what they'd done for her. It was an amazing culmination of 2 years' worth of work there.